Ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino becomes the ex-CEO. She's stepping down from the top spot at Elon Musk's social media giant a day after the company's AI went rogue. And Russia unleashes its most vicious attack yet against Ukraine. Can a proposed Senate bill be the unexpected solution here? Plus, you can't Livvy here. Gymnast turned influencer Livvy Dunne loses out on a chance to own Babe Ruth's old apartment. Is good old-fashioned snottiness to blame? Those stories and more today, Thursday, July 10th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. Just 2 years after taking the reins at X, Linda Yaccarino is stepping down as the CEO and de facto right-hand woman to Elon Musk. Why she's leaving is a mystery. Yaccarino thanked her billionaire boss for the opportunity, but she didn't shed any light on the reasons behind her decision. Musk responded on the platform, quote, "Thank you for your contributions." Kind of curt there. The timing here is certainly something to note, as the move comes just a day after X's AI chatbot known as Grok had an anti-Semitic pro-Hitler meltdown. However, a source close to the situation said that Yaccarino's exit was being discussed for the past week and had nothing to do with the AI behaving badly. Now, prior to her short tenure at X, Yaccarino had worked as an advertising exec at NBC Universal, and she was personally brought in by Musk in part to repair X's strained relationships with advertisers. Now to the ongoing saga between President Trump and Harvard University. The administration has now served the school with a subpoena demanding data on its student exchange and visitor program. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem posted, quote, "We tried to do things the easy way with Harvard. Now, through their refusal to cooperate, we have to do things the hard way." Noem had previously made requests for that information in April and again in May, but Harvard wouldn't play ball. The subpoena will now force the university's hand. Harvard has no choice but to turn over communications, records, and other information dating back to January of 2020. Now, it also seeks to investigate alleged, quote, criminality and misconduct of students on campus, especially those who are part of that exchange program. Now, the president was asked about the issue Wednesday, and he seemed to think that the subpoena might be enough to bring Harvard to the negotiating table to end the standoff with his administration.
So Harvard's been very bad, totally anti-Semitic, and they'll absolutely reach a deal.
A spokesperson for Harvard told the Post the university will continue to cooperate with lawful requests and obligations. And over to Capitol Hill. Not what the doctor ordered. Joe Biden's former physician refused to answer questions about the ex-president's health and cognitive decline during a congressional deposition on Wednesday. Dr. Kevin O'Connor was asked only 2 questions before he abruptly got up and walked out of the closed-door session. Well, technically 3 questions, but the first was his name. These were the other 2. Were you ever told to lie about the president's health? And did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duties? In both instances, O'Connor took the fifth. And a quick 7th grade civics refresher here. Invoking the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution means individuals cannot be forced to answer questions that could incriminate them. Republican Congressman James Comer of Kentucky, he's the chair of the House Oversight Committee, well, he claimed that O'Connor's actions were unprecedented and that they added, quote, more fuel to the fire that there was a cover-up. Meanwhile, a Democratic lawmaker who was in the room suggested that the good doctor was simply following his attorney's instructions. Now, the deposition was part of an investigation into the former president's mental fitness while in office and the use of an autopen. Autopen? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a device that mimics a hand to automatically sign something. In this case, President Biden's signature on official documents. Presidents have been using it for decades. It goes all the way back to Eisenhower. Now to our big story, Russia's blistering attack on Ukraine early Wednesday morning. Just hours after President Trump tore into Vladimir Putin for prolonging the war, Ukraine's Air Force says that Russia launched more than 700 Shahed and decoy drones, as well as 13 cruise and ballistic missiles. The attack was so large that NATO scrambled jets to ensure the security of Polish airspace. Poland, of course, borders Ukraine. Now, it is the largest air assault launched by Russia since the beginning of the war in February of 2022. Russia claims that they successfully targeted Ukrainian air bases. Ukraine, however, says that they were able to down almost all of the drones and that only some of the missiles hit their marks. With the fighting getting worse and not better, and the Trump administration officially resuming the flow of weapons to Ukraine, the question is, what's next? Well, that Senate sanctions bill that I told you about yesterday could hold answers. And for those details, I'm joined now by the Post's Washington reporter, Ryan King. Ryan, what exactly does the bill hope to accomplish? How could it help end this war?
So the goal of the bill is to really crack down on some of these workarounds to the pre-existing sanctions against Russia. Russia has really kind of weathered a pretty significant storm of sanctions from Russia, from Europe, and from the United States since the war in Ukraine began. And so, what this bill is trying to do is to really target Russia's energy exports to other countries, and it would impose like a 500% tariff on countries that accept Russian imports of oil and uranium and other energy. And that is intended to really kind of weaken Russia's economy. And it comes at a time, when just a few weeks ago, Russia's economy minister had said that Russia is kind of on the brink of a recession. So it kind of comes at a time when Russia appears to be a little bit economically vulnerable, and at a time certainly that's really critical for Ukraine, because Ukraine has been suffering a lot of big bombardments from Russia, some record-breaking drone and missile strikes. So this is really intended to significantly weaken Russia.
So what is the timeline for this bill? Does it even have the support it needs, both in Congress and, of course, from President Trump?
So Senate Majority Leader John Thune had said that his goal is to get this through the Senate before they break for August recess. So it's intended to get done within a matter of weeks. There has been some talk about it potentially coming up for vote next week, but there's no definitive timeline, just the goal of getting it done before August. And it does have over 80 sponsors in the Senate, which is a veto-proof majority technically in the Senate side. There are some issues that they're trying to work out with the Trump administration. The Trump administration basically wants the president to have a little bit more flexibility and have broader waiver powers over these sanctions. So there's a little bit of a back and forth going on right now. President Trump has kind of given mixed signals about this, but he's sort of indicated that he's open to signing this if this were to reach his desk. And then House Speaker Mike Johnson hasn't really given a clear timeline on the House side, but he has indicated that he's pretty open to this as well. So this could get done fairly soon, and it sort of dovetails with what's going on in Europe. The Europeans are looking to slap additional sanctions on the Russians. It could present some complications for President Trump because notably China and India tend to still do a lot of business with Russia, with Russian energy. So this could really impact U.S. trade relations with the Chinese and with India. So there are some issues that they're trying to work out here, but it looks like they could potentially get this through the Senate at least by August.
August will be here before we know it. Ryan King, thank you so much. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles is opening up about her famous father, NFL broadcasting legend Pat Summerall, and his battle with addiction. In a conversation with Miranda Devine on our sister podcast, Podforce One, Wiles talked about a personal letter she wrote to her dad while he was struggling with alcoholism.
I said that sometimes I didn't really want to share the same name because he was doing so much that I didn't respect. I don't remember the precise words, but that's kind of what I said to him, and it got his attention apparently.
Wiles went on to celebrate the fact that her letter and those of her mother and siblings seemed to do the trick, and she was able to get her father back. Also in the interview, she heaped praise on Secretary of State Marco Rubio and spilled some tea about the end of the Trump-Musk bromance, calling it very troublesome. You can watch the entire interview on the Podforce One YouTube page or listen wherever you're listening to this very podcast. And finally today, gymnast turned influencer Livvy Dunne did not get a perfect 10 from a New York City co-op board. The former LSU star recently set her sights on an Upper West Side apartment that once belonged to the sports legend of yesteryear, a Mr. Babe Ruth. But she struck out with the building's snobby board, despite making an all-cash offer.
Then the week that I'm supposed to get my keys to my brand new apartment, I get a call. The co-op board denied me. So pretty much the people in the building voted to not have me live there, which is fine. Like, honestly, it wasn't financial. It could have been, for all I know, they could have been Alabama fans and I went to LSU. Like, I have no clue.
Now, Dunne is considered to be one of the first true success stories after colleges allowed athletes to be paid for their name, image, and likeness. But co-op boards in Manhattan, they are like the Illuminati. Very select, very secretive, and they are not hitting like on influencers moving in. Livvy is worth millions, but one real estate expert told the Post that cash isn't exactly king for a co-op board. What you have to understand here is members of these boards live in the very building that they're talking about here. And this real estate expert said that they don't want to livvy next to an influencer neighbor who, they said this, not me, hasn't ever worked a real job a day in their lives. Kind of harsh words, but kind of see the point there? I don't know. If you want to see pics of the great Bambino's apartment, and why wouldn't you, check them out on the New York Post. We are online and of course in print, and we are almost to the weekend, my friends. So meet me back here tomorrow. Like and subscribe to the New York Postcast wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube so you don't miss it. Until then, I'll be missing you.